Hi Bharat, how are you?
I am very well, Ramdev. It's always good to see you. We go back a long, long way.
Yeah. So it's nice. I mean, this is very different format, and I'm attending for the first time, and I find in you a person with whom I can conduct this session in a very interesting way. So this is, you might have heard about. I mean, I sent you the checklist. So we have decided because your company is one of the fantastic company, easy to understand also. And I mean, who's better person than you to explain to the whole world what is Pidilite? I mean, like really to explain it in our own format and with your own what you call words. So let's try to run the checklist how it works on Pidilite, and I will tell the question, and then I think in a very informal way you can go about describing so that we can do this 2022 questions in next 40-45 minutes. So uh, we have to be informal. Uh,
Yeah,
so it has to be more like a storytelling, and it has to be making sense to the people at large. So let's start with the first question. What is the history of should we go ahead, Bharat? Is there anything?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. So very first question I would say is that what is the history of the company and management? It's an old company. I mean, it got started in 1969. Probably you were not there at that
59,
point.
1959.
1959.
Yeah. We've just
Okay,
celebrated 60 years. Last year we had the famous, Fevicol 60-year-old, 60-year advertising.
okay. So how has been the journey from say the humble beginning? Typical, what led to the start of this company? Who started it, and how next 30-35 years till 95, and then how the company got the size, and you would be knowing all of it. So can you just describe that?
Absolutely. See, Pidilite started, and the fascinating thing, Ramdev, is that the story of Pidilite in 1959 and the story now, the basic principles remain the same. This was started by our founder, Shri Balwant Bhai Parikh, who is the father of the current chairman. And he started as a first generation entrepreneur. And, at that time, all of the glues that were available were very simply glues that were animal based. You would use animal bones, etc., so on. There were no synthetic glues. This was the first, and he formulated it on his own. And mind you, he was a lawyer, he was not a technical person, but he was interested in the area. He started in a small room in Jacob Circle in Mumbai,
Uh-huh.
and slowly and steadily evolved what has come to now be known as the Pidilite secret formula, or the secret formula for success.
Hmm.
He first went to and kept listening to the consumer. He spent a lot of time with carpenters, understanding their problems,
Hmm.
modified his product, kept working with carpenters. The first company in those days, everybody else who was competing was an imported product, which was a multinational.
Hmm.
Slowly and steadily built his connect with carpenters, and steadily kept growing the company. Slowly it became known as the Fevic. It started with dyes and chemicals, and it started with dyes for the textile industry, emulsions for the textile industry, and then wood glues, and slowly came to be known as the Fevicol company. Uh, you look at his foresightedness. In the 80s, he decided that, listen, besides carpenters, he now needs the consumer to know his brand. Now, fascinatingly, we've done a lot of work, Ramdev, to try and understand. There are very few countries that we can find a glue which actually the consumer doesn't see to be one of the top brands in the country. I don't know of any other country. We've looked hard and all over. He started advertising in the 80s, and it was fascinating. And in fact, look at his ability to spot talent. One of the first ads that Piyush Pandey, who is now a legend in advertising, actually worked on and is now actually also on our board, was Pidilite. And Pidilite has worked with Piyush Pandey now pretty much over 40 years. He is the creative head on Pidilite. He's also the account head. He's basically the advertising man for Pidilite. His talent when he was a young account executive was spotted by Balwant Bhai. And over time, if I was to tell you what is the Pidilite formula, spot unserved, underserved categories, which are commodities, fill those not with the product, but with the brand. Then work tirelessly with both consumers and users until you create the category. And then you repeat it again. So if you look at the story of Fevicol, you look at the story of Feviquick. Again, small little tube, 5 rupees. Do you know he got the idea of the five because Indians hate to waste. All of you and me both know that. All of the glues that were available then were imported and were 20 rupee tubes, and 20 rupees in those days was a lot of money.
Mhm.
He got the idea from eye drops and pioneered the one drop adhesive at 5 rupees and completely opened the category. Now, Feviquick is, most people don't know. We are always known by Fevicol, which is wonderful.
Mhm.
Feviquick by number of transactions is one of India's top 10 consumer products because even now, 20 years later, it is still a 5 rupee product. And, we sell a few crore pieces every month. So it's fascinating. In fact, people come and tell me I was on a trek at 12,000 feet in, Himachal. I was in Meghalaya and, for my shoes, I found Feviquick there and the guy was selling, glucose biscuits and Feviquick. Now that's the power of the brand. And so we applied the same formula to Feviquick. You see M Seal. The M in M Seal was Mahindra. It was bought from Mahindra as M Seal. The same formula applied, created the brand, created the category, and now it's like, the last word in plumbing is M Seal. Dr. Fix It. When most people believed that there is no solution to water seepage and water in the home, we created the Dr. Fix It brand, and therefore. So the story of Pidilite is a simple one. You pioneer categories, achieve leadership, and then you repeat it all over again. And it is enabled by really three things: outstanding sales and distribution management, B, great innovation, and C, great people management, building the right culture and experimentative doing preneurial culture, which enables things to happen. That is frankly the fascinating. If you look at 60 years of Pidilite, that's the consistent story.
Yeah. So it has been one of the most consistent stories. But how do you make money in the sense that you said it is basically a commodity in the sense that glue or M seal or they are like a very easy to build kind of a product. I mean, not as a branded product, but as a alternative or as a commodity, they're not that difficult to build. At least it sounds from outside a very simple product. But you have been able to create a fantastic and I mean amazingly powerful brands. So how do you make money in the sense that your 45-50% is raw material cost, and then you have a whole lot of other costs, sales and marketing costs, and I think so. How do you make so much of money? And the company has changed in last 15-20 years. So is there any formula which has changed because you have been branded company for quite some time, but how do you make money?
Our formula for making money is actually no secret. Very simply, first we start with we build with a superior proposition. Everybody else is using a commodity. We give something which is much more value added, and we work with users to show them that advantage. Now, if
Mhm.
I gave, go rewind to 10 years or 15 years back, and if you had seepage in your home and I gave you a product that stopped the seepage, you will give me the premium for it.
Mhm.
So when you create categories as a first mover, you will always get the value from the consumer as long as you're true to your proposition, and B, as long as you're persisting in, creating categories is not easy. It's always easy being a follower. As they say, being a pioneer, being the first is always more difficult. But when you're the first, then you also get the best view.
Mm, mm, mm.
And that's how you make money.
Yeah. And third is that is the company profitable? Of course, your company is profitable for from ever. I think from 59 itself, every year you must have made money. And now you are making money at about 25% kind of return on capital employed. So your capital employed is also very limited. You have been quite profitable. So do you monitor this particular metrics, and how do you look at your profitability in your company?
See, we're always clear that intrinsically anything that we must do must be profitable over a period of time. We're most happy. I'm not worried about this quarter and the next quarter. The wonderful thing about Pidilite is we're a long-term player. We're here for the long term. Intrinsically, anything we enter must give me the possibility to make money over a period of time. And that's a principle we remain true to. We may, therefore, from a gross margin perspective, we will always be profitable. We may invest more in sales and distribution. We may invest more in advertising and in a lot of meetings with influencers, etc. But that's all part of a plan. Over a consistent basis, if you look at our profitability, we've always said our EBITDA margin will remain between 20 and 25%, and it's been like that for a number of years. When raw material prices are soft, it goes to the upper end. When they are, and again, we don't price for inflation. We will always price at 75% of inflation because we must keep getting more and more efficient. And of course, obviously, ROCE is something we monitor. You know, the good thing about any Indian promoters, I think, is there's always a value of capital. Your capital allocation is never indiscriminate.
Mhm. Yeah. And since you're profitable, now the next thing is about terms of trade. How is your relationship with your creditors and debtors, more particularly with the debtors? So I have seen that in recent years, slightly the debtors, maybe there's a slowness in the economy or whatever. There is a little bit of slippage in the debtors, your terms of trade with the trade. So is there any conscious strategy to slacken it or tighten it? What are the plans in terms of translation into cash flow?
I think that's a great question. See, actually, what has happened is over time, our exposure to a lot of new sectors has come up. For example, we've got divisions that now look at organized real estate. Now,
Mhm.
the number of credit days in organized real estate is always going to be more than the retail market. However, as India, as the Motilal Oswals of the world build their buildings, they're not going to go to a retailer to buy. I need to have a separate division which is talking to them. So
Mhm.
over time, because our exposure to institutional sales, the government has gone up, our debtors in those areas have gone up. But if you look at 85% of our business is consumer business, there the number of days of debtors is exactly the same. Actually, it's got a little better over time. And it's only in extraordinary circumstances like now in COVID where we actually went to our distributors and said, listen, until COVID gets all right, don't worry about paying. This is about partnership. We are holding your hand. And the fascinating thing is, if you look at our debtors now at the end of September, we are back to normal again.
Mhm.
So overall, the policy hasn't changed, but as you know, as an organization, we keep evolving. Exposure to some sectors will give you a little more debt, some will give you a little less debt.
So the change is because of the mix.
It's because of the mix, absolutely.
Okay. And one of the thing is that over a period, particularly last, I think, 13, 14 years, the company has become hugely profitable. I mean, the margin structure has changed a lot. I mean, I remember in early 2000 and all, it was not as profitable. It was always known because of the brands, but it was not as profitable. It was EBITDA margins were less than 10% types. And from there, something has happened. Maybe you have contributed to the whole process, but the company has become far more profitable in terms of margins. Something has changed. Raw materials have remained at around 45, 50%, but other expenses have changed a lot. So what does that portend in terms of how to look at the margin structure in future?
I think three things, Ramdev, have happened. One is very clearly, to be fair, the credit actually goes to the the promoter family and the founder and the work that was done. You're actually these are all investments that you're now reaping the benefits of, because for years you've invested in your brand, you've invested in your dealer relationships, you have invested in your influencer relationships, and over a period of time that is giving you a premium. So that's one. Second is innovation. See, a lot of people think of Fevicol as one brand. Fevicol actually has over 200 SKUs. There is a Fevicol which is for work when the surface is wet. There's a Fevicol for the kitchen when your temperatures are high. There's a Fevicol for air conditioning ducts. There's a Fevicol for flooring. There's a Fevicol for children's art and craft. So over time, we've also ensured that a lot of our innovation is always margin accretive. And therefore, over time, the product mix has kept helping us. The value of the brand has kept helping us. And thirdly, scale. As you get bigger, so on and so forth, etc., the benefits of scale continue to accrue. And as the Indian economy has grown, like all good FMCG companies, we have grown 1.5 to 2 times GDP, and that has now given us the scale. And therefore, the sum total of all of that is a very healthy EBITDA margin.
But you've done, the company has done very well in terms of margin improvement in sustained way in last 15 years, and that's the salami market is giving. But coming back to the again profitability issue, one is you have now optimized the margin. I would say at about 14-15% of net margin. It's a fabulous margin to have. But what about your asset turns? That has kind of stuck at about less than 2 times. I mean, like one of the things is that you are using a little more capital than what was earlier. Maybe it is to do with the business mix, but clearly the focus on the asset turn is somewhat slackened. And you are coming from the background of the international companies, and there this asset turn is the mantra.
Yes. No, I think that's again a great question. I must tell you, it is intentional. See, in Pidilite, we have a very simple model of growth. We classify our categories into three categories: core categories, growth categories, and pioneer categories. Core categories are those where we already have a market leading position. We're already leading, we've already created the category, and our job is to grow the category. Pioneer categories are categories where normally we are competing against non-consumption. Take something like waterproofing. Even now, 4 or 5 out of 10 homes in India do any proper form of waterproofing. So really our task is to educate and create the market rather than get share out of these four. So we have a set of pioneer categories. And thirdly, we have a set of growth categories. And thirdly, we have pioneer categories, which very simply are tomorrow's core categories, tomorrow's growth categories. Take something like, tomorrow, Ramdev, if you were to renovate your home and you did tiling, anywhere else in the world, you will use to put tiles, you will use sand, cement, and some adhesive. In India, 9 out of 10 people use only sand and cement. They don't put adhesive. But now as you have these vitrified tiles, you have larger tiles. If you don't use adhesive, they're going to come off, they're going to fall. Now here, if 1 out of 10 is using it, this is to us a pioneer category. The job is to create this category over time. If I can make this 1 into 2, 3, 4, and 5, I've got a runway for growth for the next 4 to 5 years. So a few years back, when we looked at our portfolio, we realized we'd been concentrating a lot on the core, but we needed to broad base our portfolio. So over the last 5 years or so, you would have seen we've done a lot of acquisitions, joint ventures, and in a sense, we are investing for tomorrow so that our portfolio over a period of time should be 50% core, 50% growth and pioneer. That in a sense, next time, God forbid, there is a recession or a slowdown, at least half our portfolio will actually be only competing against non-consumption. It will not be based upon economic conditions. So over time, because we are broad basing our portfolio, we've invested a fair bit. We've got a whole set of new subsidiaries, etc. These are frankly our fixed deposits for the future, which are going to keep the future flywheel going.
Mm-hmm. So you are conscious of the turnover, but it is very conscious effort to keep it at this level because of the emerging categories. They require a little more capital. They don't turn that fast, isn't it?
They will take a little more time because remember, in our model, if you're going to create categories, it takes a little bit of time, but then once it's done, it constantly then gives you return. That's the journey we're on.
Yeah. So now coming to competition, which is a main thing in the sense that in analysis, how do you look at your competition? I mean, it is a very interesting category, very heavily advertised and darling of the market in terms of consumer side, and very few competitors. I mean, you have, I think, crazy market share, and very few are attempting to disrupt you. So, how do you look at competition? How do you keep the competitors away from you?
See, I must tell you, it appears, in fact, on a more light-hearted way, a lot of times, people will look at you and say, "Hey, you must be having an easy job because you don't have competition." But actually, that's not true. Every major, global major, whether it's a Henkel, whether it's a 3M, whether it's a Huntsman, all of them have, actually, some of them are still in the market. All of them have tried and pitted their products against us. Some of them are still available. Our policy has always been simple. Make sure you have the strongest brand, and hopefully you're delighting your customer a little more than everybody else. A lot of domestic companies on a regular basis are coming in waterproofing. All of the paint companies are now making a play. See, any consultant who has to recommend new categories in the home improvement space is going to look at Pidilite's size and profitability and say that, listen, even if you got a little share of that, you'll be very profitable. So why don't you enter here? So we're not strangers. We know we will keep getting competition. We are very respectful to it. We will keep a very close watch on it. But what we keep telling our people is, listen, we must satisfy our customer a little more than everybody else, and look forward. Don't look too much behind your shoulder. Otherwise, after some time, you'll focus too much on competition and too little on the customer.
So, would you think that the current margin structure of 15% would invite a little more because now capital has become very easily available in India. So, can it invite newer competitions, more aggressive competitors, and build the distribution and even brand matching? Because you are taught the making of brands out of commodities. So, your competition will do first of that. And are you seeing anybody challenging your current kind of absolutely monopolist status?
See, we're very obviously cognizant of competition, respectful of it. We must keep, remain true to our model. We make sure, for example, our price premiums are always reasonable. Therefore, at any point of time, we're not giving anybody a large enough play for them to actually try and replicate our model and actually pull the rug from under our feet. We make sure we stay there. And we believe our operating margins are at the right level. It's to keep investing back and make sure we grow volumes and grow the top line aggressively. And as far as competition is concerned, be very mindful, keep a close watch. But if you're doing the right thing, hopefully you will keep them at bay.
Yeah, I think Astral Poly is trying to enter your segment, and they're also smart guys. So, and they are growing it rapidly. Is it hurting your growth? I mean, of course, everything else is fine, but is
My
it?
simple answer, Ramdev, is you are a champion analyst. You take despite our size, take our 3 years adhesive growths and take their 3 year adhesive growths and see the results, and then you will know whether they are hurting us or not.
Okay. And what are the sources of sustainable? I mean, in management jargon, sustainable competitive advantages. But I mean, apart from differentiation, I would say differentiation is scale. That would be market dominance. That could be your sources of competitive advantage. But anything more, you can lighten us on this.
I would say three things. One is, remember, these are branded businesses, the power of the brand. And, can you remember in the annual brand equity surveys, Fevicol is now amongst India's top 10 brands. It's not the top 10, home improvement, or it's one of the top 10 overall brands. In household care, it is the number one brand. So to my mind, that is a strong competitive advantage, the power of the brand. I think the second is distribution, reach, and availability. We are now pretty much in all villages over 10,000. We actually have programs where in 70% of villages between 5 and 10,000, we reach directly. So our distribution reach is obviously, it's a competitive moat. It will take time for people to make that up. And thirdly, I believe in all of this, your culture, your people, the way we work, the way our people are, the way our people enjoy working at Pidilite, I think that's a competitive advantage. We have a wonderful team at Pidilite. And, if you look at, for example, the COVID period, the wonderful thing is they have put up their hands. They have been ahead, looking after customers, looking after carpenters, looking after, tile layers. Largely because I've always maintained that character is best tested in adversity. And if you have a good culture, you're doing the right things, you will win when adversity comes, and hopefully that is what is happening.
Yeah. And now, having seen the company in the last, it's a established company and very profitable company, growing company, a very respected company. Now, but that's all past, and the market has more than rewarded for whatever it has done so far. But what is the future story, in the sense that where is the where, I mean, you have a competitive advantage, so profitability is not almost guaranteed. But what is the growth story? What is the addressable market? I mean, do you see? I mean, you must be excited to see the future. So how exactly you see the future opportunity, and what are the growth drivers for this company?
Again, great question, Rane. We're actually very excited by two things. A, the India opportunity. And then if you look at it broadly, we're in the home improvement space. And if you look at any statistics, home improvement will grow at 1.5 to 2 times GDP. So as long as India keeps growing within India, we will be well advantaged, and our addressable market will continuously keep increasing. We started, for example, with wood glues, then we went on to waterproofing. We're now going into tiles and tiles adhesives. Then we're going through the grouts on the tiles. We're going to the wood finish. So over a period of time, improving your home, we will have a range for pretty much the whole home. And the fascinating thing is there are still so many categories that still have to be created. In our case, it's a question of making the right choices, not about what to do, but what not to do. And I think that's the wonderful thing in with the business model and the area that we're in. The other thing, of course, also is, remember, we're clear we are an emerging markets player. Our India success model should be able to be reapplied in other emerging markets. So I'll give you the example of Bangladesh. We went to Bangladesh and we were the fifth company in Bangladesh. So there were already people there. It was not that we were the first. In 10 years, we are the clear leader in Bangladesh. We have, Fevicol has the same kind of position now in Bangladesh that it has in India. In fact, anecdotally, the immigration guy asked me, what brings you to Bangladesh? And I said, I work for Fevicol. And he was most happy. He started telling me about the advertising of Fevicol. Now Bangladesh is a great example of where it's now, while we are investing back, it is growing at very healthy rates. It is a market where we have won and we're the clear leaders. We actually believe many more Bangladesh. We've now set up in Sri Lanka. We are obviously all over the SAARC area. We're looking at Africa very aggressively. But India will remain our focus and laboratory. We will first win in India, and then we will take that winning formula and reapply it to markets like India. So when people ask us, what about Europe? What about US? We say no. Listen, let's keep our focus. Our focus is the emerging world. This is the world we know how to win. And this is where we will remain. And this is such a large opportunity, Ramdev. Again, if I look at the product geography combinations, again, it is about what not to do rather than what to do.
What I'm observing is that last 5-7 years has been relatively slower growth, at least in terms of top line. So is there a linkage with the economy? Or real estate? Where is the linkages? How do I figure out that now Pidilite is going to grow at double the pace at which it was growing without asking you? Or in the sense that how do I understand the company in terms of growth? What drives the growth of this company?
See, we've done a lot of work actually understanding that. Fascinatingly, the closest correlation remains to GDP growth. Home improvement actually correlates very well to GDP growth because it's all about both not only new homes, but repair and renovation is a large part of it. So really, and as I said, what are we trying to do vis-a-vis our model? My core categories must grow at 1.5 to 2 times GDP. But as we create more growth and pioneer categories where you're competing against non-consumption, hopefully over a period of time, you will therefore grow faster than 1.5 times to 2 times GDP, as you'll have a lot of categories where you are creating the category rather than worrying about economic growth. But overall, if I was to tell you, yes, economic growth will remain the single biggest driver for growth for any consumer goods company in India. The India opportunity has to be about India growing.
Are you happy with what you achieved in last 3-4 years in terms of top line growth, or you think you could have done better?
See, I think the last 3-4 years have seen massive disruptions, be it demonetization, be it GST, now be it so it's been a period where you've not had even 24 months of a smooth runway. Having said that, when we again correlate to GDP growth, we look at, and we don't look at only our competitors, we actually see the whole consumer goods universe. Excuse me. We will be in the top quartile there. So I think we are happy, but we are not delighted. We would like higher top line growth as India grows.
How has been the business in post-COVID kind of because this is a once in a lifetime kind of a situation. So how has been the experience post-March in last 8-10 months in terms of recovery phase, or have you come back to the pre-COVID, or are you growing on top of COVID? Because we hear in more recent months the economic activity, particularly on the real estate side, has picked up quite well.
See, if you look at our September results, actually, if you look at the post-COVID period, April, May was bad for everybody. June was when, in a sense, some amount of business started. And actually, if you look from June to December, it's actually been a steady upward trajectory. Now, these are truly uncertain times. So for me to make a prediction, now suddenly in the last 2 days, we've heard of this new wave, so on, or this new virus. To my mind, if the pandemic remains under control, I think larger companies, the larger players, the bigger brands, people who are trusted more by the consumer will come back quicker. When we see our numbers, for example, for the last 4 months, I think the good thing is the recovery has been faster than we thought it would be. The metro cities are still not back to full growth. Outside the metros, actually, most other parts of India are now actually back to pre-COVID levels or better than pre-COVID levels.
Do you think, I mean, one of the things I have seen is that between 2003 to 2008, after quite a long, stagnation between 1998 to 2003, there was it made up for everything between 2003 to 2007, though on the back of global growth, global liquidity and post 9/11. Now we have had our own stagnation in last 5-6 years, and it finally culminated into current COVID crisis. Now post-COVID crisis, now with the massive global liquidity, low cost of money, more globalized kind of a situation, no dearth of capital for the country. Do you see it could be a new era for? Just because you're on the ground and you are seeing so much across the country, do you feel that we could be at the cusp of some kind of exciting phase in next 4-5 years?
I think all of the factors exist today on ground. It's like saying, as a chef, you've got all the ingredients lying on the kitchen table. It's now for us to put them together and cook this wonderful dish. I think the possibilities exist. I think India is poised. Is poised for consistent high growth. I think it's a question of making it happen. Yes, there are uncertainties. But, would you say we are optimistic about the India story? Forget the, next 2 months or 3 months, we don't know. But on a secular basis, absolutely, yes. I don't think anybody can stop India.
So are you thinking of, we are seeing every day, I keep checking who all are putting new plants, who are announcing capex, because that's the real act of faith in the future. So are you doing anything in terms of announcing new capex, additional capacity, something like that?
So just to give you a perspective, Ramdev, I have 11 new plants coming up as we speak. Not one, not two, 11 new plants in different sectors, in different categories. That's our confidence in the future of the Indian economy and how it's going to come back. And we believe we are already seeing signs of that. So across the country, in different categories, we actually have 11 new plants now under construction.
So that would double that capacity or something like that?
Double, but yes, it will increase it by about 30-35%. And then some of these are in completely, as I said, the growth and pioneer categories. These are new categories also.
Okay, so that is a good news that companies on the cusp of new phase of growth, I would say.
Oh yes, we're ready for the new phase of growth. We're making sure that we are fully equipped for it.
Okay, and you will use these capacities even for exports. Will the mix change in the sense that as you go forward, including Bangladesh, do you think the mix of domestic and internationalization of the company, would it happen far more rapidly as we go forward?
Difficult to say. It will happen. Like for example, we've now just put up our first plant in Bangladesh is completely out of capacity. We've just inaugurated a second plant. We've just put up a new plant in Sri Lanka. We have a plant in Thailand, where we have in Africa. So yes, but to my mind, I think on a percentage basis, international may grow faster. On an absolute basis, India will still grow bigger. We are not going to lose focus on India at all.
No, that is of course, but because maybe today it is 5% or 7% of the sales, can it become 20-25% of the larger pie as we go forward?
Yeah, it's about 15% already. I think it will become 20-25. Places like Africa, if you look at Africa around there, large parts of Africa are like states of India. One country may be a little more like Bihar, another maybe more like Andhra, so on and so forth. And they have the same mom and pop stores. A lot of them actually have traders of Indian origin. They still have workmen who are like Indian workmen. So therefore, the conditions for us to win exist in a lot of these economies, and obviously we are going to go and these are not large investments, so it's about actually staying the course and growing with these economies.
So do you in your business plans, of course you keep planning 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, definitely there must be some perspective plan, and based on that you are setting up capacity also. So what kind of a growth will make you happy, in the sense that is that 15%, 20% top line, or even higher than that would be aspiration of the company?
See, I think it's very difficult. In Pidilite, the wonderful thing which I've learned also from my chairman is we never put numbers to growth, Ramdev. We always say that, listen, we must grow healthily and we must grow faster than the market. Do you know Pidilite never has number targets? So a lot of companies will say 20,000 crores by 2025 and 25,000. We don't have any of that. We just say, listen, do the right thing and the numbers are a consequence of the right thing. And if you see our record over 20 years, so we actually don't ever operate on any of these numbers and saying, listen, we should do this, because we believe that at a lot of times that generates the wrong behaviors. We would rather do the right thing and let the numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah. So now we'll come to the next bucket of this thing about the management. Of course, the first question always I try to figure out, this is a known company, very well-known company, and run ably by Bharat. So that itself is a signature that there is no question about the top thing, that is about the integrity and all. So that is all taken for granted. Is the management competent? Of course, it is competent. But would you like to say some of the things which we may not be knowing about internal processes, which show you, because you have worked in nice global companies. So when you come here and see the management strength, where is that difference? I mean, where is the superiority over the globally successful companies and these companies which are local brands and they've done such wonderfully well against the competition with global companies? So where is that additional competence which is coming into these companies?
Fair. I always maintain, Ramdev, I've had a great advantage. I've done exactly half my career in really well-managed, family-run, family-owned companies, and half my career in true blue multinationals. And our dream at Pidilite is, can we create a best of both? We call it what is called a pronorial culture, pro from professional and norial from entrepreneurial. So what you want to do is you want the agility, the speed, the risk-taking ability, the apolitical nature of a family-run company. But you want the systems, the capability, the governance, the rigor of a great multinational. And if you can marry these both, you can, it becomes an unbeatable combination. And that's the journey at Pidilite we're on. If you look at our leadership team today, it's a wonderful mix of people from both sectors. If you look at the next levels, we're really building for the future. I mean, every year we're recruiting between 50 and 100 graduates from, premier institutes. We're building the Pidilite of the future, but building it with what we call, in Pidilite, we have a wonderful term called Pilglobin. Pilglobin is what makes Pidilite special. Pilglobin is what gives Pidilite its edge. And really, therefore, we're very clear. We don't want to be anybody else. We want to be Pidilite. We know what makes us win in the market. We want to keep building on that. And part of winning there is building a culture, building a team that is A, operating differently, B, enjoying what they're doing, and C, consistently winning in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just to give you two examples, I mean, in the last 4 years, we have doubled our spend in R&D. It's not gone up by 10, 20, 30%. We've doubled our spend in R&D. If you look at our investment in brands, it is also consistently on a consistent basis gone up. So we're also very clear that we're investing to be we're not worried about this quarter, next quarter, so on. Yes, obviously we worry about whether we're doing well, but we're more worried about doing the right things and investing and creating the Pidilite of the future.
Yeah. So one of the things I have seen among the corporates over the last 25 years is that the fixed mindset and growth mindset. Okay, I mean, I'm quite sure that you all have growth mindset, but the fixed mindset has clearly, they take failure. Basically, they look at failure as as a sign for stagnating, and for the fear of failure, they would not do anything new. And that leads to stagnation of the company. And the growth mindset guys, failure is part of life. So they take it as an experiment or as a challenge to overcome that and go forward and build the businesses. So failure is, there's two mindsets. They look at failure in a different way. What's the thought process here? How do you look at failure at Pidilite?
See, one of my greatest learnings, and this actually I had the advantage and the privilege of first serving on the board of Pidilite before joining the company. And one of my great learnings from the promoter family, from Madhukar Bhai Parekh, who's now our chairman and was then the managing director, is, Entrepreneurs are never afraid of failure and they are never afraid of setbacks. It's about this pioneering spirit, and you're right, and until you get it right, it's about that falling down and getting up. It's never about falling down, it's about how you get up. And this is something which frankly I have learned so much, and I would go back to my multinationals when I was on the board and say, guys, the speed at which these people do things and the risk they are willing to take, they're willing to persist, I think we have a lot to learn. I think one of the reasons why Pidilite is because it's never afraid of failing, and growth is like a mantra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's about growth management. Does the company have a rational capital allocation policy? So one of the things which is happening is that now highly profitable companies have nice treasuries, in the sense that large part of their cash flow is stuck in the treasury, because treasury was giving nice 8-10% return. But now that luxury is gone, now the safe returns are more like 4.5%. So would your payout policy, or of course, what can be absorbed in business, as you're saying, 11 plants under construction, that is the happiest news one can ever get. You can even invest 100% of your PAT into new capex and not pay any dividend. But is there any thought process in terms of capital allocation? I mean, how exactly you want to look at your disposal of the cash flow which you have year after year from the businesses?
For example, I think that's a wonderful question, because for most cash-rich companies, that is one of the dilemmas, and it's a very nice dilemma to have. But at Pidilite, fortunately, our category is not capital intensive. So even with all of the new investment in new plants, Ramdev, our investment in capex remains between 4 to 6% of sales. It's never going to be 25 and 30% of sales. The second thing is, we've just, for example, in the middle of COVID, done an inorganic acquisition. We've bought Araldite for 2,100 crores. But we believe we bought it at a very sensible price. We've just made the acquisition in November. And we made it at 17 times earnings. And when I look at, my treasury and the return I'm getting and the ROE that I get on this from day one, it actually earns me more than, without any synergies, we earn more from day one from the acquisition. So, things, obviously we're open to both organic and inorganic growth. We will always remain prudent. I mean, we had all this cash on our books, but we've never been indiscriminate in the spending of cash. I think as a growth-oriented company, when the opportunities come, you will have the money. And, we financed the whole acquisition out of our internal treasury.
That's wonderful. I mean, having this size of reinvestment through associated brand is amazing. So I'm sure this is going to do a lot of good in the years to come, maybe starting next year itself. And about the depth of the management, in the sense that, is it I'm quite sure Mr. Parekh has handed over the reins of running the company, but how the company is, how deep is the management below you? Because they have created you, but have you created, or is the organization far deeper beyond you? I mean, how integral, or how indispensable you are in the entire system?
See, firstly, I don't think any of us are indispensable. Fortunately, the good thing in Pidilite is we have always been clear that we're creating what we call a family of professionals. From a professional family, we are creating a family of professionals. Wow. All of my next level who are CEOs today, have been CEOs, COOs of very successful, well-run Indian companies. The next level again is a set of high caliber fellows. So actually, to be fair, when I look at the bench at Pidilite, that gives me a lot of strength, and that gives me a lot of also satisfaction. Because frankly, while people like us get a lot more credit, actually the real work is being done there. Companies this size, Ramdev, one person can never run. The important thing is making sure you have the right people in place, and you're creating an environment where they're able to be themselves, they're able to do things, they're able to fail and not be castigated for failing. Then you're going to have a successful company. And that's what I think Pidilite, we're on that journey.
One other thing is that, the succession plan. I mean, the Asian Paints and the Pidilites of the world, they have redefined what is the value in the stock market, particularly in India. These are not very well-known categories all over the world. and there have been trillion-dollar kind of companies out of nowhere. So from very simple things. So one of the things is the longevity of the current culture and current management. So succession plans. So how do you make sure that in next 5-10 years, when you are ready to hang your boots, there is enough, there is a more capable than current management? Because what is happening is, in my mind, between 95 and now, one generation is exiting. People who built these businesses, economy was nowhere in 95, and now it's a $3 trillion economy, and we are headed for $5 and $10 trillion economy in next 5-10 years. But the same set of people are not going to lead these successful companies. So it is very important that I think you are also part of the transition. As a professional, you will have limited tenure. So how do you make sure that succession is planned not only for once, but it's a culture of successful succession?
See, I think it all starts with governance, Ramdev. So one of the first things that Pidilite we did as a company, and the credit actually goes again to the promoter family. If you look at Pidilite's board, it is one of India's marquee boards. Every single person on our board has been the CEO of a successful multinational or a successful Indian company. And obviously, therefore, board governance, one of the first things any good board is going to ask you, outside the day-to-day governance, is things like succession planning, longer-term strategy, capital allocation. So it is something that is active on our agenda. It is something we've obviously already, it's not that we have to start working. We are already working on it. And, in many ways, a large part of the agenda is already getting done. So to my mind, for any responsible, well-managed, well-governed company, this has to be now, part of your day-to-day work.
Mm-hmm. So now we are coming to an end from your point of view, in the sense that a little bit of stock picking and modeling has to be done by us, and we have done that. And here we find that the valuations are very stretched, and you know that. Almost $12 billion for a less than $1 billion company. So have you got any thoughts on that? Do you ever think about it? Is it being ever discussed? Do you look at the valuation, and what's your view, if at all any you have?
See, I actually follow the view of my chairman, and I completely subscribe to it. His simple philosophy is, we don't manage for the price, we don't worry about the price. Let's do the right thing and let the price be an outcome of what we do. There are enough experts like Ramdev to value us correctly. Our job is to do the things within the company rightly and focus there. So frankly, we don't worry about valuation. We don't, work towards it. I think it's an outcome, hopefully, of what you do. And really, there are enough experts like you to tell us whether it's right, not right, because at any point of time, this is not our area of expertise.
So, Bharat, we have come to ask the most difficult thing: what can go wrong? A lot of things can go wrong, and so what are things which keep you awake in the night? And every business has its own challenges. So, what is that? What all can go wrong? On the management side or business side? In these two buckets, do you think? How do you? What are the risks you would flag for us? You should keep watching, Ramdev, when you buy the stock of this company.
I would say, leaving aside the external risk, the country risks on what could go wrong, and frankly, there are enough experts for that, and I will not go there. Internally, if you ask me, the single biggest thing that could go wrong is we become complacent. In all of this, never let success go to our heads. Never let success be something that we take for granted. We must remain hungry. We must remain curious. We must keep looking at all competition very seriously. Never disregard any competition as small or inconsequential. And I think we must keep, our pace and keep at the pace that we've been going. I think that's the most important thing. Complacency is this one thing. Complacency, overconfidence is the one thing I keep telling my teams and myself that we should never have, because, it's very easy to get carried away with what people are saying or writing about you. I think it's important to just keep to the straight and narrow and do the right thing.
Okay, so thanks very much, Bharat, for this wonderful thought process. I actually learned, in this 45 minutes, this is a too short a period to learn about a company, and that too of the size and stature of Pidilite, but still I learned, and in a very cohesive fashion in last 45 minutes. Thanks very much, and all the best for sustaining 95 P multiple and the current $12 billion. I wish you take it to $100 billion under your own astute leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ramdev. As they would say, आपके मुंह में घी शक्कर. Thank you so much.
Thanks.